The Fiat 500 is back in America again, and this is all new generation called the 500e. They're all electric, and in this video I'm going to cover the exterior, the interior, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, as well as talking about the kind of range you can expect and also the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as the styling on the 500e, I really love how cheery it is. Even on this gloomy, rainy day, especially in red, it just brightens your mood just looking at it. It's just happy and joyful, and with the industry these days having everything being mean looking and aggressive, I love that this is completely the opposite, and it's such a cool little vehicle. And they also had a lot of inspiration from the 1957 original vehicle, and you know, they've always had a retro look to the 500s, but I really like how they've evolved it and taken it into the future here with these LED headlights with the little accent light above it to complete the rounded look, and also the lower rounded lights there as well, and of course the blocked off grille here for the electric version. And it's just a really nice look. I think the vehicle has also grown ever so slightly. It's almost an inch longer on an almost 1 inch longer wheelbase as well, but it's 2.2 inches wider, which should help with making it feel a little more spacious inside than the last generation. I mean, obviously it's a small car still, there's no way around that, but you know, improved it a little bit, and I think that's great. I also like the little Easter eggs you have around here. I love the little Italian flag in this little fender piece that you have, and coming down to the sides you have flush door handles now, which is a cool touch. You even have the little 500e logo there on the rear window trim, which is cool. And then going out to the back there, again, you have some retro inspired taillights that look great, a nice evolution from the previous generation car. The red Fiat badge is there, and just a nice looking little thing. You have some nice wheels here, I think, that look pretty classy, and you know, I just really like the way they evolved the design. They kept it true to what it is, but you know, just evolved it in a really good way, in my opinion. And so overall, just really love the way this little thing looks. And there's also a cool different variation now with, there's the inspired by beauty and inspired by music versions, which you can get in like rose gold and even, you know, more fun colors. This one here is the red edition, which benefits the red charity, and it's great you have it in this, but there's also of course other colors you can get. You can get it in a more subdued black, white, stuff like that if you'd like as well. The interior of the 500e is also really fun. I love the inspiration that they took from the 1957 car, the original one, with especially the painted dashboard here for the red version is really cool. I love that. And there's also some fun little Easter eggs, but it's just really smartly packaged in here, I think, as well. Obviously it's not super big, but because you have that extra width for this new generation 500, it means you actually have a little bit of a more roomy cabin than before, which is great. So anyway, the first thing sitting down in these seats, you have cloth seats here in the red version. If you go up to the inspired by beauty or inspired by music version, you'll have leather, but the cloth here is really nice. It's a silkier cloth, and you know, still has the embossed Fiat logos there. It's a really cool pattern, honestly, and just manual seat adjustments, but they're really nice, comfortable seats. I like them a lot, actually. And you know, just no heating or anything like that here, but you know, still really great seats. The steering wheel is also really nice here, again, for even this base version of this. To have a leather wrapped wheel is great, and has a great 9-3 grip, little 10-2 notches. Also inspired by the 1957 vehicle with no bottom spoke here for the wheel, but just a few buttons here on it, nice and easy to work. The gauge cluster is also a nice, simple little thing, but works really well. It's a 7-inch digital gauge cluster. I like that it's in a rounded enclosure, again, a nod to that 57 car. And you know, you see that it's got, you know, all the usual adjustments here, but it's great. You can have like a map view if you're uncertain of where you're going. You have that right there in front of you. You can also display other things there if you don't really care about seeing your power display or whatever. And just really great little gauges. Coming over to the middle here, you have a 10.25-inch touchscreen as standard, and it's really great you have that on all of them, and it runs the Uconnect 5 software, which is great. It has wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, which is something other EVs, you know, don't offer in some cases. And so anyway, it's really easy to navigate everything. The menus are all pretty well laid out and very easy to work everything. The only complaint I can say is that it's a little slow. As you can see when I'm tapping around going to the next sub menu there, you know, it takes a beat to do that. And hopefully that's something that could be improved with software updates and things like that. It still is fine. It's not that laggy, but you know, it's not super sharp, you know, razor quick responses like you see in many other vehicles these days, but you know, it should be totally fine. And again, having that smartphone integration is really great. And it's also cool, you can see like your battery and all that kind of information in there as well. Coming down, you do still have a row of physical climate controls, which is also really nice, something that a lot of others, especially with cost cutting, that's happening with a lot of these EVs. You know, a lot of them were just putting all that in the screen. I love that we still have some buttons here. That's another really nice touch. You also have a little row of buttons here to, you know, put the vehicle in reverse, drive, all that. You also will see in this area your first little storage bin. And this is a wireless charging pad as standard. That's standard equipment in all 500Es, which is great. And also a USB-A jack in there, interestingly enough. You do have a USB-C in the center armrest here, along with another USB-A. But speaking of that center armrest, you have a nice deep cubby there, and a lot more storage than you'd expect. I think that's part of the perk of this being electric. You have a lot of space in there. You also have, underneath the center armrest, another really deep cubby. Great to have that. And also the center armrest is nice and softly padded, too, and the cloth is nice and soft there. You'll also see your volume and mode selector right here in the front, and it's great to have still a physical volume knob as well. And then if you're wondering where the cup holders are, there's one that flips down here, and just a really cool little touch there. It's a nice rubberized one, and obviously you can fit nice tall drinks in there too if you'd like, which is great. But only that one cup holder. You do have pockets in the doors with bottle holders, so you know, as long as one person in this vehicle, you know, has you know, a cup holder, hopefully everyone else can just be okay with bottles or whatever in those doors there. So one little sacrifice you do have to make. But also in the door, I love how it says made in Torino and shows the old little car here in the grab handle. And this grab handle is also interesting because, you know, your natural inclination is to use your thumb when you're getting out of these vehicles. But with this, what I found is, you know, you grab it with most of your hand, but then you use your index finger to press the button and open it up. And that works pretty well. It's just a muscle memory thing of most of the time you're not using your index finger when you're opening a vehicle like this. So it's just kind of a little bit of a switch there. But once you get used to that, I think it's going to be totally fine. But yeah, I love those little Easter eggs, like, you know, and also the city outline of Torino here for the wireless charging pad, and just, you know, a fun interior. Now I will say here for the US versions, we don't get any kind of glass roof option like you get in Europe, unfortunately. Maybe that'll come eventually. There's also a cabrio version in Europe we don't have here yet. Hopefully, again, those come, especially if they have some success here with the 500e in the States. Hopefully we'll get more versions of it. But you know, for now, you know, it'd be nice to have a moonroof or something like that, but no such feature here. But it means you have great headroom, you know, nice and spacious here, you can see. And then moving on to the back seat here, obviously this is a small car, so that's going to be tight. Now I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I have my knees up against the seat back, but it's a soft seat back, thankfully. And they're not like jammed in there. There's just barely touching the seat back. So, you know, if you're 5'9" or shorter, you know, everyone should be able to fit in here okay. You know, for short trips, again, this vehicle doesn't have a super high range, you know, 141 miles. So you can't sit back there for too long anyway, but just note that, you know, it's a small car, and that just comes with the territory. They all do have a cup holder back there as well, which I guess could be used in a pinch for front seat occupants here if you really want to and have yourself reach back there. But they have a little built-in armrest as well. And also, like, other surprises, like I love how you have this open area in the front here and kind of gives you a retro vibe as well. You also have a really deep glove box. I usually don't talk about glove boxes, but if you are desperate for extra space, I mean, that is a huge amount of space. You could fit like a tablet or something in there, honestly. And, you know, really impressive amount of space there. But I really love this little interior. I mean, yeah, you know, you have hard plastics and stuff. It's still an economy car, but, you know, I think that it's actually really nicely finished and a really nice little place to be. But let's turn it on and go for a drive. So the 500e has this key that does have the 500 logo on it there, and just some buttons on the back. And it's, you know, just a plastic key with, you know, some plastic rubber kind of buttons there, but, you know, totally fine. And of course, it is keyless access. It's also keyless entry, push button start as standard here on all these 500es. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the power button, and listen to this. It does a fun little song whenever you turn it on, which just, you know, is a nice little touch. And also whenever you turn the vehicle off, it almost sounds like a holiday song whenever you turn it off, which is very appropriate with this one having the red accent on the inside here. You know, feels a little Christmassy whenever you turn it off. But I think it's fun. Just, again, little, you know, surprise and delight things here just to make the experience a little more fun and a little more cheery. This whole vehicle just, you know, looks cheery on the outside and happy. It's cheery and happy on the inside here. The sounds it makes are happy. This whole vehicle just, I don't know, to me just exudes joy. All right, so setting off here in the 500e. So the first thing you notice, I think the first thing I'm noticing is there's a decent amount of road noise here. Again, we're talking about an economy car, so that's okay. But it's just, you know, a little noisy in here. Again, not too bad. Again, it's a small vehicle, so there's only so much sound deadening you can do and all that. But, you know, otherwise, it's a really nice little thing. You know, as far as throttle response, it's pretty responsive here in the normal mode. There are different modes. There's a regen mode with a one pedal function you can have in that regen mode. There's also a Sherpa mode, which maximizes your range. If you are low on range, it'll cut horsepower to 76 horsepower and cut your top speed to 50 miles per hour. If you really, you know, again, are trying to take it slow to get home. But otherwise, I mean, visibility is really good. You actually have a little bit of a thicker A-pillar at the base there, but it's so far forward that you don't really have it in your way a whole lot. And, you know, you feel like you're just kind of driving around in a little bubble because you are, with nice large windows. View out of the back is pretty good as well. And so it's, you know, a really nice, easy little thing to navigate, to park, obviously, just the joys of a small car in general. Steering is also nice and light, and you can feel there's a little bit of sway whenever you, you know, change direction. We'll try that out in a minute here, but first I'm going to turn down onto this back road here, and we'll see how the 500e accelerates. Obviously, not a sporty vehicle necessarily, but let's see how it does. And rolling into it from 20 miles an hour, here we go. I mean, it gets up and goes pretty good, honestly. It's not bad. Again, for something like this, I mean, the spec sheet is not impressive. So it has, of course, just a single motor driving the front wheels. It's 117 horsepower, 162 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 is about 8.5 seconds, I think, is what is quoted. But I think Car and Driver actually managed to get a 7.8 seconds 0 to 60. And honestly, you know, 7.8, you know, again, for something like this, isn't that bad. You know, that's quicker than like the average crossover on the road these days. Subaru Crosstreks are, you know, a little bit slower than this and stuff. So, I mean, very respectable performance, honestly. Again, you think 117 horsepower would feel really slow, but this vehicle, even being electric, still weighs under 3,000 pounds. It's like 2,953. So, you know, it's not a lot of weight. You know, we have some gentle corners here, nothing super tight, but, you know, going around these corners, you have 205 wide tires, which, again, for something this small and light, is completely sufficient. But as far as handling goes, you know, they did keep it simple to cut costs because you have like a torsion beam rear suspension, which again is totally fine for something like this. You also have rear drum brakes. It's been a long time since I've reviewed a vehicle with drum brakes, but you know, just in the back. In the front here, you have disc brakes, and you do have regen here with braking. You know, whenever you slow down or, you know, lean into the brakes there, it does, you know, start to recharge that battery a little bit with that regen. And you know, so I mean, it's a simple setup, but it works, and it works well. I mean, as far as braking goes, I mean, it still brakes plenty strong enough. Again, for a vehicle as light as this is, totally fine. But as far as the electric component, that's the big thing here about this. So it has a 37 kilowatt hour battery as far as the usable pack, roughly. And I mean, it's a small battery, but it's a small car. And but that means, you know, you're not going to have a ton of range, because you got to have huge battery packs to have huge range in anything these days currently. So as a result, the range is quoted at 141 miles of range here with the all-season tires. If you go for the summer tires, I believe it goes to like 149 miles of range, and you know, your mileage is of course going to vary. I think in Car and Driver's testing, though, they only managed to get like 120 miles out of theirs. I believe that was on the highway, but you know, so not a ton of range. But you know, this is not a road tripping vehicle. Now it does recharge at 85 kilowatt hour for the max DC charge rate, and they say you can get an 80% charge, like 10% to 80% in 35 minutes. That's certainly slower than, you know, most vehicles out there these days. But again, it's a small battery, so you don't need to have an insanely high charge rate in order to fill it, you know, fairly quickly. And you know, people usually stop and have lunch for half an hour, so if you plan your stops accordingly, you know, you could road trip in this. Obviously, you got to stop fairly frequently, but if you're okay stopping every 100 miles or so and taking it slow and easy, you can do that. Now, if you are just doing around town driving, of course, like a majority of people will be doing in a vehicle like this, it still can actually recharge pretty quickly. If you can charge it on a level 2, it does a max charge rate there, so that you can do a full recharge to 100% in just 6 hours. So if you can charge this at home at night or at work or something, you can come out to a fully recharged vehicle and you know, have another 140 miles to go. And with the average commute in America these days being, you know, something in the 30-mile range, you can completely do a day's worth of driving with ease, even in the winter, if, you know, range is slightly slower at that point. But you know, it's a totally sufficient little vehicle in that case. And I think for, you know, a second vehicle, fun little commuter vehicle, things like that, this is going to be a really nice option. There was even enough power there to spin the tires for a split second whenever I was accelerating with the wheel turned in the wet here. But it's a fun little thing. I mean, you get right up to 35 miles per hour just like that, you know, and it's I don't know, I really like it. I don't know, you know, if it's just me or what, but this thing just is a really fun little thing to run around in. I love small vehicles, just the ease of use with them, the parking ease, just navigating everything. It's just so easy and effortless, and yeah, I don't know, it's just a fun little vehicle. And you know, now these roads are a little bit smoother, and you know, road noise isn't too bad at all. So it's just, we're in the Pacific Northwest here, so you know, you have some rougher roads around here, and that certainly contributes to the road noise, you know, in many cases. But if you have nice smooth roads like this, it's totally fine in here, even in dead silence. And you usually have the radio going, or you're talking to someone, you won't even notice it. As far as the safety tech here in the 500e, you know, it does have like automatic emergency braking, and you do get adaptive cruise control in the Inspired by Beauty and Inspired by Music higher versions. You don't get the adaptive cruise control here in this red version, but otherwise, you know, it does have the lane keep assist and the basic stuff. Although interestingly, I don't think blind spot monitoring is here, at least on this one. So that is one thing, you know, that you don't have. But it's such a small vehicle that honestly, I don't know if you need blind spot monitoring. You have such good visibility over your shoulder there, and it's just a very easy vehicle to, you know, manage, because like the back wheels are like right behind me there, you know, so it's a little easier. So not a big deal, and honestly, I think it has everything you need. And unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time to drive this vehicle. I'd love to spend a whole day or a whole week with it, but you know, I just really have enjoyed my little test drive here in it so far. But the last thing to mention here, though, is the pricing and how it compares to basically the non-existent competition currently. But as far as pricing goes, this red version here starts at about $34,000, and that's before any kind of, you know, lease incentives, things like that. It's not eligible for any of the purchase incentives because it is built in Italy. But you know, as far as, you know, the pricing goes, you know, if you go for the Inspired by Beauty or the Inspired by Music versions, those are like $37,595. So a little bit pricier, you know, when you go for that leather and the adaptive cruise that you get in those versions. That's really the only difference, though. It's the leather, the adaptive cruise, and you know, the different colors and themes. But that's basically it for that you know, extra price tag. And I think the cloth is totally fine for most people. But the problem here is that, you know, at $34,000, the biggest problem right now is the Chevy Equinox EV, which starts at about $35,000, and that is you know, a lot more car. It gives you a lot more range, like double the range. You have a large, spacious vehicle with a big back seat, a bigger hatch, bigger screens, just more of everything for essentially the same price tag. You know, that is the biggest problem, is the price of this. You know, I think if it were a little cheaper, then this could make a lot more sense for a lot of people. And I think eventually, you know, maybe there will be some even lower cost versions, or, you know, maybe pricing will be adjusted at some point down the road, or there'll be just different incentives as things, you know, progress and time moves on here. We will have to wait and see. But right now, the pricing is the biggest problem. If you can get a good deal on one of these and it makes sense, you know, for you, absolutely, in a vacuum, when you're disregarding pricing, I love this little thing. I would happily have one as a little daily driver for a commute, or, you know, just for running around town. I really like this, and like, yeah, if the price was right, 100%, I, you know, could totally see myself actually owning one of these things. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts here, though, on the 500e. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Fiat for providing us here with this vehicle at this Automotive Video Association event that I'm at currently, and just so happy I was able to get a chance behind the wheel in one of these things, because it is really, I think, an underrated car. I think, you know, in America here, everything has to have big power, big range, big size, and you know, I don't think that you know, everyone needs that. If you actually evaluate what your needs are, not what you want or what you think you need, but what you truly do need, this is going to work for a large majority of Americans, at least the ones that can, you know, charge at home or at work. But you know, again, this is a very European vehicle that unfortunately just, you know, is an uphill battle for a lot of Americans. But hopefully pricing will get better, and again, we will, it'll get a little bit more appealing. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on the 500e in the comments below. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.